What's the secret behind scaling some of the most successful startups in the world, like Deliveroo, Vita Mojo, and beyond? Today's guest knows exactly what it takes to turn fledgling businesses into industry giants. Claire Alvis has spent her career building high performance teams and customer success strategies that drives massive growth. But it's not just business. Claire is also a mom of two, managing the balance of startup life and family life. And in this episode, she'll be sharing her journey from surviving startup failures to scaling unicorns and how founders can grow their purpose without losing control. Welcome to another episode of Founders Podcast. I'm your host, Ash, and this is a show where I interview proven founders and industry experts who share their stories, strategies, and insights to help you build, launch, and grow your business. So I hope you enjoy the show. Claire, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ash. Thanks for having me.
Great. Do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires you, motivates you, you would like to share with our audience?
I do, and I only came across it today, weirdly enough, quite through happenstance. But I think it's really powerful. It's we cannot become who we want by remaining who we are, and it's really
Hmm.
just all about growth, effectively. Like how do we work out what that next thing is? And I found that really powerful.
That is that is really really powerful. I still remember. I'm one of those guy who's like the shortest in the class in the school, and then is like the slowest in the racing, and then I had to, which is not a very common thing for me to go and participate in a sports in school. And then my sports teacher pushed me. Oh, you have to, these heavy ball sports where you throw it off from your shoulder, and he just kept pushing me, and it's like, Ash, how are you going to get better if you are not going to try even to push it? And I kept pushing it for like a month, and I'm all of this shoulder of mine is like pulled off, and then there's so much pain. But one thing I realized, I wasn't the bad, like that's the person who is like the last in the throwing competition. I was like last third or somebody. So I was like so happy that day. I couldn't tell you that. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that quote. It's a personal thing. So tell us more about Silent Partner and Secret Sauce. What does the product do? Who is it for? And what's the main problem you're helping to solve?
Sure. So the Silent Partner was set up by two friends of mine, and we've all worked for startups and for high growth companies for decades between us, and we see lots and lots and lots of the same challenges, should we say? And so we set up Silent Partner to really help consult and help founders avoid some of the challenges that we ourselves have experienced, and help them scale in a sustainable way. And by sustainable, I don't mean green, I mean kind of in a way that doesn't break you as a founder and doesn't break your business.
Hmm.
And so Silent Partner really works one to one with companies to help them grow a sustainable business at whatever stage of the journey that they're at. That can be an early stage startup looking to kind of find its first foothold to much bigger companies who potentially have, a new challenge on the horizon that they need some help with.
Okay.
Um, but out of that, actually, what we developed as a sort of secondary offering, which we're about to launch and we're really excited about, is a community called Secret Source.
Mm-hmm.
And Secret Source basically puts together not only the founders of companies, but also people who are experts in their field, ambitious operators, so people who are, maybe HR manager right now, but they're looking to really become one of the leading voices in HR, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
actually small businesses. So people who have nothing to do with the VC world that we're kind of experienced in, which we're creating a community that actually puts all of these people together. And whilst everyone will have their own separate group, we actually believe that by putting people together in this space, we're actually going to be able to find some really interesting uh, new angles to look at things, because I think historically they've been two very separate worlds. And actually,
Mm.
building a business is building a business, however you want to do it. And the same principles apply. You may need to tailor things slightly. What works for a huge company isn't obviously going to work for like a 5-person accountancy business, but the
Yeah.
same principles around sustainably building a company to scale for growth are the same no matter what business you have.
Interesting. And you said that you have some co-founders, and altogether you have like tens and tens of years of experience in the startup world. How many I don't want to call it silent partner because
No, no, that's fine. You
co-founders,
can call
yeah, co-founders you have currently?
So there's 4 of us, and we all work across different disciplines. Um, like my background is more ops and customers.
Mm-hmm.
We've got someone who's very experienced in the HR world, another person who's much more experienced in recruitment, and we've got a really nice blend of different bits of expertise
Mm-hmm.
that I think makes Silent Partner a really strong offering for a company looking to find a partner to scale with.
Got it. Got it. And correct me if I'm wrong. The silent partner is is not is not an agency or a platform where you go when you need to hire somebody. It's more or less around when the founders are looking for like a partner in their business, or is it both?
Yeah, so we we're trying not to be quite a few things, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not a traditional consultancy. We're definitely not a recruitment agency, and we
Mm-hmm.
try to avoid doing things like fractional and part-time work.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for that is a for us, it doesn't really scale.
Mm-hmm.
You can only do as much as time you have,
Mm-hmm.
um, and secondly, there are other like just putting someone in there with experience is one way of helping a company grow, and that may be the right way for them.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, a lot of these people, a lot of these companies have teams, and teams with very talented individuals in, but they may not have seen how to do a certain stage of growth. And what we actually say is like, rather than put someone in and say like, okay, let's hire someone, might be part time, might be fractional, might be a full time hire,
Mm-hmm.
and this person will do it with them. Why not try and teach this person how to do it? Help them put in the right checks and balances to make sure that you can check that it's actually going okay, um, and really bring the whole company together in this rather than just sort of put someone in who knows how to do it. So I guess it's about transferring expertise and helping the founder navigate that path rather than necessarily looking at putting someone in from a fractional perspective.
Got it. Got it. And I want to go into more details around how actually the story all began and everything. But before that, can we take a step back and
Mm.
can you share with our listeners around like what was your role at Deliveroo? How did you got in the team, and what kind of strategies you help them with to implement to get into the growth, or you know become a unicorn now? And then a little bit touch about what Vita Mojo also after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came to Deliveroo quite by chance, I guess. My early career background was in TV, and I worked on live food shows like Saturday Kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
um, which was really good fun. I really enjoyed doing it as a sort of 21-year-old. It was probably one of the best jobs I could have had going out of uni. But what I found was that I actually really wanted to learn more about how the world worked and how businesses worked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I started to look for other jobs, and I ended up working for a chain of restaurants in the back of house, sort of managing the kitchens,
Mm-hmm.
um, called Inamo, and they do Japanese food.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I sort of had built up this, I guess, portfolio working in the food industry. And I saw a job come up for Deliveroo, and I thought, well, I can try it. I'm sure I don't have the right experience, but I'll give it a go.
Mm-hmm.
And as it so happened, what they were looking for was someone to come and help them determine the quality of restaurants on Deliveroo. And actually, so I was very much the kind of person they were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined Deliveroo around about Series B, I think. So it's still a young-ish company, but definitely on its way to growth.
Mm.
And actually, it was a hugely interesting journey. My initial role, as I said, was to kind of determine quality of restaurants on the platform. But we very quickly realized that quality is in the eye of the beholder, right?
Mm.
What someone might think of as like absolutely gourmet food, another person might deem as a complete waste of space. And someone else who might think that tatty Chinese shop down the corner or whatever it is not what they want. To someone else, that's like their Friday night treat. So we kind of scrapped the idea that like food is of different quality. It just depends what people want. And actually what it really became about was finding a way to showcase the quality of every restaurant and do it in a way that was unique to Deliveroo and really clear to the customer about what the value proposition of that restaurant was. And so it became all about scale and about process. And we started off sort of transforming the way we did things in terms of bringing restaurants onto the platform in the UK. And then when we figured out that worked, we then went and did it in all of the other markets in Deliveroo. And so it really became a very interesting job that transformed from being about kind of the quality of individuals to actually like working at scale across hundreds of thousands of restaurants and trying to make sure that everything all looked the same from every point of view. So that was my journey at Deliveroo, I guess. And
then, sorry, go on.
Sorry, you asked about Vita Mojo.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
So after having spent about 2.5, 3 years at Deliveroo, I decided I was ready for a new challenge. And actually, at that point, Deliveroo was a very big company. And so I thought, well, I'll go somewhere much smaller and see how things work at the other end of the scale. And so Vita Mojo is a restaurant ordering software. So think if you go into Subway and there are kiosks, that's powered by Vita Mojo. But when I joined, it was very, very small. I think they had about 10 clients. And it was really trying to make head or tails of digital ordering for the first time. This was pre-COVID, and digital ordering was, I would say, not a common way of looking at things outside of the likes of Deliveroo, etc. And then COVID hit. So I joined in 2019, and then COVID hit. And initially we thought this company's done for. We no one's eating at restaurants. We're absolutely screwed. But actually, it really became the growth trajectory, which I think changed a lot of the future of that company. And we managed to very quickly develop an MVP of like order and pick up from your restaurant. And then what ultimately became order and pay at table. So if you think about all those QR codes that you had during COVID, so we developed some of the early software for that. And growth over that period was absolutely crazy. It was exponential. We landed a deal with Nando's and rolled out to Nando's, all of Nando's 400 sites in the UK in a month, which is probably some of the more crazy things that I've done. But it was, I'm not going to say it was 100% a success, because like all of these things, you find things that go wrong. But it was a real journey in terms of growth and how to keep up at pace, particularly when actually, a lot of the hospitality industry's livelihood was dependent on this, because it wasn't normal times. You couldn't just go into a restaurant and say, oh, I don't want to use the QR code. It was mandated that that's what you
Mm,
had to do.
mm,
So it became um, a real challenge, but also one that felt like it had real purpose, because we weren't just doing this to make money. We were doing this to try and help a lot of our friends who were in the hospitality industry out and make sure that they still had a livelihood.
mm. Were you directly involved with breaking that deal with Nando's, or were you like a?
So my responsibility was to make sure that the execution happened.
Mm,
So the deal I cannot take credit for. That was the wonderful sales combo of Nick and Nick at Vita Mojo.
mhm.
But the execution was definitely a challenge.
Mm. Indeed.
Not just because Nando's has one of the most recognizable brands, I think, in terms of the restaurant industry, and we had to make sure that everything matched that brand and customer experience.
Indeed. And you said it's 400 restaurants across UK, right?
It was about that, yeah, at that point,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't knew that, so that's a good piece of information to learn,
Yeah,
right?
wherever you go, you find the Nando's.
Yeah, yeah, that's really great. So after that, then Claire, talk us through like how did you meet your co-founders? Where did the story actually begin for Silent Partner and Secret Sauce?
So one of the co-founders I've known and worked with for many years. So he actually hired me at Deliveroo.
Hmm.
So we worked together very closely at Deliveroo, and then um, for the last 2 years we worked together at a different startup as well.
Hmm.
And from that, he knew um, the the ultimate founder of Silent Partner, Steve, and then Steve brought on someone else as well. So we all kind of came together through different parts of it, and we all are slightly differently involved in terms of how things work. But yeah.
Cool, cool. And what's the story around this Silent Partner and Secret Sauce? Where did you found this opportunity and you said, "Oh, that looks a good business. Let's do it."
I think we've all worked for um, startups, big and small, before, um, and we've all had both the experience of kind of hiring consultants, and I have nothing against consultants, but sort of having like explaining a problem and being given an answer which is basically a nice slide deck. Um,
Mm,
and I think we really all felt that like there was more to it than that, and our experience collectively would actually make a really strong proposition for founders out there.
mm,
Um, and I think with Secret Sauce as well, we just started expanding our remit a bit. I think we've all worked in tech startups for a long time,
mhm,
but as part of my research around this, I started to join some local business networking groups, and Steve, my co-founder, is part of another one near where he lives. And we found that a lot of the things we were talking about were very similar, but actually you just needed to phrase them in a different way for them to resonate with business owners as opposed to startup founders.
mhm,
Um, and it seems unfair, that's the wrong word, but illogical that you wouldn't try and bring these groups of people together, because actually they do have a lot in common, and they do have actually opportunities that would be mutually beneficial to each other as well.
mm,
Um, and so really the idea of Secret Sauce was to try and pull these disparate groups into one place and actually find a way that we can make content relevant to both startup founders and industry experts, but also make that tailor that content so it's beneficial for small business owners. I
mm,
think small businesses make up something like 98% of the UK economy, or something absolutely crazy like that. So when you look at it purely from like a logical perspective, why wouldn't you try to bring in that
mm.
market? It's so vast and there's so much opportunity, and we've learned a lot. So hopefully it's useful.
Definitely, definitely. And you touched very lightly on, so you mentioned hiring consultant and gaining the value out of what you were investing into them. Wasn't that, like, good in terms of return of investment? You wanted to help startups, because startups usually work in a different way compared to established, MNC companies. and
Mhm.
and and then you wanted to bring the mutual benefit together for startup founders, so that there is a common space where they can not just connect, network, or help each other, but also could do learn from each other what different strategies they're using into their businesses. um when you found out about this opportunity, or when you thought, okay, let's we have spoken with multiple founders, I think this is something which we could do, could create a space for us in the industry. Were there any um other people in the market? Did you found any competition? What was going on that time, and what came out of your research which made you go forward with this idea?
I mean, there's lots of people out there giving advice,
Mm,
and I think for me personally, one of the things that I had to learn very quickly is don't be put off just because you see someone else doing something. There's
mm,
always room for competition, and competition is a good thing to have because it pushes you to be better, right? Um, so I think that's lesson number one. Lesson number two is everyone has a slightly different approach to things.
mm,
And what one company may do in terms of the consulting they offer or the advice they give, to me, might seem like not the advice I would have given. Um,
mm,
and sometimes I learn good things, and sometimes I think, oh, I might not have done it that way. And I think that difference means gives you validation that what you're doing is right. You have an alternate piece, like point of view. And that's really one of the things that we're trying to get across with Secret Source as well. We're trying to give people a platform where their view is valid.
mm.
Whether that's a founder trying to become a category leader with their startup, whether that's someone who's trying to be a leading expert in their field, whether that's HR or operations, you know, you need a platform on which to be able to do this. And we all spend, I'm sure, too much time on LinkedIn um, talking about how this works.
Yeah.
And sometimes there is real strength in numbers. And I think by building this community, we're actually going to be able to pull people together from different experts, different walks of life, and actually create a slightly different point of view. We're going to challenge conventional thinking a little bit.
Mm.
Um, and I think that alone is enough to say, okay, well, yeah, there are any number of communities you can join um, as a small business owner, as a startup founder, as whatever you want. Join ours because we're different. We have this point of view. We want to give you a platform through which you can grow your own authority. Um, so yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about how does a founders or somebody who is looking for connect with other founders journey will look like once they get connected with Secret Sauce, or um you know get acquainted with you guys. How does it look like? What's the first stage? What's the onboarding process? How do you help them out? And then what's the change or the success looks like on this journey?
Mhm. So the way we're going to go about it with Secret Sources, we will have different elements of the community. And underpinning it all, we have what we're calling our industry experts. And our industry experts are just that. They're a panel of people who are very experienced in their field, have worked in that field for a number of years, um, and are starting to talk about their views around their area of expertise in various different manners. And by pulling them together, we're able to actually offer them a platform to do it on, but also different ways of looking at that. So rather than just talking about your view as an HR expert, you might actually talk about it with a salesperson. So talk about how, for example, compensating salespeople works, but not just from the perspective of you as an HR leader, but actually you as an HR leader and Alex as a sales leader, for
Mm.
example. That content we believe is hugely useful to any number of people out there, including founders, including the people who are aspiring to be the next leaders, but also with a little bit of tailoring and curating to small business owners as well. So whilst as a small business owner you might not be interested in how to create an HR policy to talk about compensating salespeople for a company of 500,000, but you will almost certainly have salespeople, or you will have had to think about at some point about how you incentivize different groups of your team,
Mm.
um, and that still is very relevant. And when are you, as a small business owner, going to, for example, get someone who did HR at Netflix to tell you about that? And I think that's where the synergy comes in.
Got it. So if somebody wants to connect with you, is there like a fee to join this community? Is it free? And what's your revenue model? How you guys make money out of it?
So it's a paid for community,
Hmm.
and moreover, there's an application process. So we're not trying to keep people out, but we're trying to make sure that everyone who comes in is coming in for the right reasons and will really actually benefit from everyone else in that.
Hmm.
Um, and our revenue model is based on getting people through the doors. Once they're through the doors, then we have different ways of pricing things. So you can just be a member of the community, or there'll be various upsell options to courses and events, um, through to that. So the idea is really that we can help people grow, and depending on how much resource they have to put into their own growth and personal development will depend on how much they want to spend within the community.
Great. Do you guys also have events?
Yeah, we absolutely will be doing events. So the events will be, again, largely tailored towards what content our panel of experts will be putting out.
Hmm.
But we'll also have sessions with myself and with Steve, the co-founder, um, around the courses and things like that as well.
Got it. Got it. Okay, great. So let's touch about like when you started the business. What was the go to market strategy, and how did you got your first 10 customers?
Um, so Secret Source hasn't launched yet, so
Hmm.
we're not there yet with that. With Silent Partner, um, our go-to-market strategy was really quite simple. It was kind of going to the network that we had already,
Hmm.
and I think with all of this, um, network is kind of key.
Hmm.
You need to talk to the people who uh, are your friends, um, and you need to start to understand what you can do, how you can help people, what you want to do as a favor, and what you want to do for a price. And I think there's any number of different theses that you can go for around there. Some people will say never do anything for free. Some people will say actually, you need to show them the value before they are willing to pay for the value.
Mm.
Um, I don't think there's a one size fits all approach with any of this stuff. I think you will find that there are people who are always willing to pay, and I think you will find there are people who have to know the value first. And a bit like all technology and all new ideas, there are first movers and then there are followers. You need to find who your first movers are, because then you will figure out how to get your followers.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Would you be able to share a compelling case study that highlights how a small startup leveraged a silent partner, as a solution to achieve success and solve their key business challenge. I would love to hear more about the specific problem they faced, the steps taken to solve their problem, and the measurable outcomes you had.
I don't know that we can do that at this stage.
Okay.
I think. Sorry, it's a little bit too new, Ash. Sorry.
That's okay. That's perfectly fine. So I think, from my understanding, so we have this section on our show where we go through what we have the show, and then reiterate through all the information so that our listeners can actually remember what we have discussed. So let me quickly share this, and then we will talk it through on here. Okay, great. Cool. So you just mentioned that you started your career working essentially from restaurant to getting into Deliveroo, and then that's where you help them out understanding the quality of the restaurant, which is not basically was the first concern for the customers, and then you guys moved to a different direction. That's where you met your first co-founder currently, and then you moved to Vita Mojo, which was like around like a digital payment menu or payment system for the restaurants, where one of the biggest operational challenge you had was to have it available across all the 400 restaurants, Nando's restaurant in the UK. You also mentioned about why you started this new venture with your co-founders, because you faced this challenge firsthand. You've seen hiring consultant, how difficult it is to get the return on investment. You mentioned that startups work a little bit in a different way compared to the giants or the MNCs, and you also understood that it is mutually very beneficial for people to get into kind of like a community where they can benefit from each other. And that's where the secret sauce idea came along, where you're trying to bring people together so that they can mutually benefit. And you just also explain about like this is going to be a paid community where you'll be having courses, events, and all sort of things which enable people to not just grow individually but grow as a group. Is there anything else we missed, or you think almost everything is covered?
No, I think that looks good.
Yeah. Okay, great. So let's move back to our lightning round. I've got six quick fire questions. If you don't want to answer any of them, just let me know and then we can skip. But they're very, casual questions around strategies and recommendations. So, yeah, you,
Okay.
you can give it a shot. Okay, great. So, number one, what are the top three strategies for startups to gain more traction in 2025?
You need to know who your customer is. Uh,
Mm.
top one, absolutely. Make sure your definition of your ICP is really, really clear,
Mhm.
uh, and make sure you know how to get to them.
Got it. Uh, ICP is something which I've always emphasized during, all the startups I've been helping out, and this is something which a lot of startups don't do well when they start. So I totally agree with you on that. What book would you recommend to our audience, and why?
What book would I recommend? So I recently read Key Person of Influence by Daniel Priestley.
Hmm.
And I think I think it's a really useful read, not just from a perspective of how to become influential in your own sphere, because you may find that actually that's not an interest. You don't necessarily want to build your own personal profile like that. But I think the science he has behind it, or the logic he has behind how to sort of make an influence is really applicable whether it's you that you're applying that to or your business. The rules behind it around um, how you show your brand off, whether that's your personal brand or your company brand, is really really relevant. And so I would definitely recommend that people read that, even if they're not interested in becoming influential in their own sense. And actually, even I would question that, because if you want to become successful in a business, there is always a personal element of that, and that's definitely something I'm discovering later in life, I guess.
No, no, definitely. Nowadays, people believe in individuals, and that triggers them to go to the brand. It's very difficult to create brand without having a personality.
Yeah.
Anyways, in 2025, I think it was different back 20 years back, because we had, capital was one of the power we used to have
Mhm.
for the organization, where they used to invest a lot on marketing, but now it's kind of different. Great. So, what one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
I would say the most successful founders are flexible.
Hmm.
Um, I think the biggest issues I've seen are where a founder is unwilling or cannot see that they're wrong, or that someone else's idea might be better than theirs.
Hmm.
Um, and so the ability to kind of flex both your will but also your idea of what the way to the North Star looks like,
Hmm.
I think is what defines someone who is able to really understand what it takes to get there versus someone who just wants to do things their way.
Hmm. Flexibility has came couple of times in different interviews, so I can vouch for it. You need to understand. Even Jeff Bezos said, right? You need to take ideas on board from every single person in your team, and then fail fast. That's the right way to go forward. So why not? Great. What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
Hmm. I'm a recent ClickUp convert. And one of the things, so I'm part of a community which the person who runs it is a ClickUp wizard. She's so good at it. And what I've learned is the more you can sort of put in one place, and I'm not even talking about different documents, I mean, put everything in one document, like keep it as small as possible. And you basically start to create a complete record for yourself that you can then search. So you put all of your meeting notes into one document, and you put all of your ideas into one document, your LinkedIn post, whatever it is. And then
Hmm.
every time you think, oh, I'm pretty sure I had something about that, let me go and check. You're not searching across like 10,000 different documents or even, different folders or different places. Having everything in just that one document, actually, even though it might feel really messy and a bit sort of haphazard, is going to save you so much time when you have that sort of, oh God, I know I have that somewhere moment, which we all have on a daily. So ClickUp, but specifically that idea of putting everything into one place, I think has been really transformative for me.
Interesting. I've seen ClickUps at many times, because they always target people who are running businesses. So yeah, I might have to try it one day. Cool. What's a new or a crazy business idea you would love to pursue if you had time?
Um, I I don't know that it's a crazy business idea, but I'd love to write a book.
Hmm.
It's that it's not exactly a new business idea at all. Um, but it's just always one of those things that's absolutely last on my list. And I have, again, a folder somewhere of book ideas that I'd like to write. And every time I think about them, I write them down in there. Um, but yeah, it's always one of those things that's last on my list and last to prioritize. Um, but one of these days, I will change that.
Definitely, definitely. Great. And last but not least, what's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
Hmm. Um, so for a long time, I was the telephone voice at Deliveroo,
Oh,
um,
okay.
because when I worked there, um, believe it or not, they didn't have an automated uh, voice directing you to where you wanted to go to.
Mm,
Uh, and being a startup, we just did things quickly and cheaply. So
mm,
I, for the first lot, I actually recorded it inside one of our meeting booths. Kind of press one for riders, press two for restaurants, all of that. And then we got a bit more money, and I did it in an actual voiceover studio in Soho, and I felt very grand.
yeah.
That lasted for several years. I'm no longer the voice. I have checked, but yeah, for a long while, you would have got my tones telling you to please hold and thank you for waiting.
That is so cool, you know? It's like it's a lot of people, I mean, mostly all the people who are contacting Deliveroo, they are aware of your voice. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Great. Claire, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story, unpacking, last few years of building your career, your business, and some of the ups and downs. If people want to get in touch with you, people want to know more about Silent Partner or Secret
Mm.
Sauce, what's the best way to do? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Secret Source, we're going to be launching details as to how to apply to that in the coming days and weeks. So, the best place to find out all the information about that is going to be LinkedIn.
Hmm.
Silent Partner, we have a website, silentpartner.tech. You can find us there, alongside all sorts of information around how you can contact us. And me personally, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can reach out and chat to me there whenever you want.
Great. Great. Thank you so much for joining us today
Oh, thank you.
and sharing your inspiring journey and impactful work you're doing with Silent Partners. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks everyone for listening to our podcast. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast and stay updated on our future interviews with proven founders and industry experts. Stay inspired, stay motivated, and keep building.